Think of a quaint village in southern France where cobblestone streets wind through serene neighborhoods. In one such home, a man named Dominique Pelicot lived a life that, on the surface, seemed ordinary. But behind those walls, a harrowing secret unfolded, a story that would shock the nation and the world. Nestled in the picturesque town of Mazan, located in southeastern France, stood a modest home that blended seamlessly with its surroundings. The residence, shared by Dominique Pelicot and his wife Gisèle, was the epitome of suburban tranquility. Neighbors would often see the couple tending to their garden or enjoying leisurely walks, embodying the image of a content, retired pair. However, the serenity of this facade masked a disturbing reality that would later come to light. Dominique Pelicot, born in 1952, had a complex history marked by allegations of past traumas and a series of professional endeavors, including work as an electrician and later in sales. In 1973, he married Gisèle, and together they built a life that, to outsiders, appeared stable and loving. Their move to Mazan in 2013 was seen as a peaceful transition into retirement, a chance to enjoy the quietude of the French countryside. The house in Mazan, though unremarkable in its architecture, became the epicenter of a series of heinous crimes. Over nearly a decade, from 2011 to 2020, Dominique orchestrated a systematic campaign of abuse against his wife. He would drug Gisèle, rendering her unconscious, and invite numerous men to assault her, all within the confines of their home. These acts were meticulously documented by Dominique, who recorded and photographed the assaults, creating a chilling archive of his crimes. The discovery of these atrocities came to light in 2020 following Dominique's arrest for unrelated voyeuristic offenses. A search of his electronic devices unveiled the extent of abuse, leading to a landmark trial involving 51 defendants, including Dominique himself. The trial, held in Avignon, captivated the nation, exposing the depths of betrayal and manipulation that had occurred behind closed doors. The house, once a symbol of domestic bliss, was now irrevocably tainted by the horrors that transpired within its walls. For the community of Mazan, the revelation was a stark reminder that an evil can lurk in the most unsuspecting places. The Pelicot residence, with its unassuming exterior, stood as a testament to the duality of human nature, the capacity for both outward normalcy and hidden depravity. In the aftermath, Gisèle emerged as a figure of resilience, her courage in facing the public and the legal system inspiring many. The house, however, remained a somber monument to the suffering endured by the secrets it once concealed. Before Dominique Pelicot's name became synonymous with one of the most disturbing criminal cases in modern France, he was just another face in a crowd. Born in 1952 in France, Dominique's early years weren't marked by any major public incidents or warning signs, at least not on the surface. Like many men of his generation, he grew up in post-war Europe, in a country that was rebuilding, reshaping, and recovering. But behind closed doors, stories would later emerge about a man who carried trauma of his own, some of it possibly rooted in childhood experiences, some of it shaped by who he later would become. In his youth, Dominique was known to be intelligent and technically skilled. He worked as an electrician and eventually moved into various other jobs, including stints in sales and technical support. Co-workers and acquaintances described him as quiet, orderly, and capable. He wasn't particularly social, but he didn't raise red flags either. If anything, his personality was described as reserved, maybe a little intense, but never dangerous. That was a theme that would repeat throughout his life, the image of normalcy masking something much more sinister. He met his future wife, Gisèle, in the early 1970s. She was gentle, soft-spoken, and trusting. The two married in 1973, and for decades their life appeared stable. They raised a family, held steady jobs, and eventually transitioned into retirement. Those who knew them during those years had no inkling that their story would take such a horrifying turn. Dominique played the role of a supportive husband and a dependable provider, a man who kept to himself but seemed solid and reliable, the very image of a quiet, ordinary life. But according to court reports and psychological assessments shared during the 2024 trial, Dominique's inner world was far more complex and deeply troubling. His online history revealed a growing obsession with control, humiliation, and sexual domination, particularly through non-consensual means. These weren't new interests developed in old age. Investigators believe they had been building over time, slowly consuming more and more of his internal world until they became a twisted reality. What's especially haunting is how long he was able to keep that side of himself hidden. Through careers, friendships, parenting, and decades of marriage, he maintained the appearance of someone trustworthy. The duality of his life is what shocked so many people. Not just that the crimes happened, but that they happened under the radar of so many for so long. In interviews with those who knew him personally, many expressed disbelief. Former neighbors in Mazan remembered him as polite, somewhat distant, but never alarming. And that's what makes this case so terrifying. Because nothing about Dominique's early life or public behavior screamed monster. The signs weren't obvious, but they were there. Patterns of control, emotional detachment, and a growing need to dominate quietly escalated over years, finally exploding in a series of acts that would leave the entire country stunned. By the time Dominique Pelicot was nearing his 70s, most assumed he had fully settled into a peaceful retirement, living with his wife Gisèle in the quiet town of Mazan. In southeastern France, he seemed like just another aging man enjoying the slow pace of life. But in reality, this quiet home had become a crime scene in disguise, and in 2020 the illusion would finally fall apart, shattering not just his life, but the perception of everyone around him. It all began with a relatively small offense. Dominique was arrested for voyeurism after it was discovered that he had secretly recorded women in public restrooms. That charge alone was disturbing, but what authorities found during the investigation made it clear that this wasn't just a case of inappropriate surveillance. It was the key to unlocking something far more horrifying. During a forensic examination of Pelicot's electronic devices, investigators stumbled upon a collection of images and videos that were deeply disturbing. What they found were years' worth of footage, hours of recordings of Gisèle unconscious and being sexually assaulted by dozens of different men. Dominique had orchestrated the attacks. He would drug his wife with prescription medications, rendering her completely unconscious, and then invite men, some found online, others from his personal network, to come to the house and participate in what he chillingly referred to as quote-unquote sessions. The home they shared, which neighbors described as cozy and quiet, was revealed to be a place of methodical, premeditated abuse. Investigators uncovered hidden cameras, meticulously kept journals, and digital folders labeled and organized by date. It wasn't spontaneous. It was structured, calculated, planned. When the evidence was presented to Gisèle, she was devastated. She had no memory of the assaults, no knowledge of what had happened to her, no understanding that her own home had become the stage for repeated violations of her body and her trust. Her world, already fragile, completely collapsed, and for the country, the sheer scale of the crime was almost impossible to process. Over time, as the investigation deepened, more and more names came to light. Ultimately, 51 men were charged in connection with the assaults. The trial, held in Avignon in 2024, was one of the most high-profile and emotionally charged legal battles in French history. Dominique Pelicot, the orchestrator of it all, sat in court with little emotion, facing charges that spanned nearly a decade of calculated abuse. As more disturbing details emerged, it became evident just how disturbingly organized Pelicot had been. Authorities described his home setup as clinical, as if the house had been converted into a covert film studio where every detail was premeditated. He had installed discreet lighting and audio recording tools. In some sessions, he even offered guidance to the men involved, directing them like a film director behind the camera. These were not chaotic crimes of opportunity. They were rehearsed, logged, and archived with the kind of obsession usually reserved for collectors or archivists. One of the most haunting elements, according to court testimonies, was the complete absence of remorse. Pelicot didn't deny his role. He admitted to what he had done, but in a cold, matter-of-fact way. He claimed that he loved his wife and saw her as a willing participant, even though Gisèle, drugged and unaware, could never have given consent. Psychiatrists later testified that his behavior fit that of a manipulative narcissist, someone who believed he had ultimate ownership over his partner's body. thoughts, and will. The home in Mazan, once thought to be a quiet couple's retreat, became infamous overnight. Neighbors were horrified. Some had known of the Pelicots for years, shared wine at dinner parties, or exchanged pleasantries while gardening. The idea that something so methodical and evil had happened just a few doors down was hard to reconcile. The town itself struggled with the fallout, facing waves of media attention and national scrutiny. Following the trial, the house remained vacant for a time. Local authorities considered tearing it down or converting it into a center for domestic abuse victims, but ultimately the decision rested with the new owners, people who bought the home unaware of its history. It's said that the home was renovated and altered, perhaps in an attempt to move on, but even fresh paint and new furniture can't erase the trauma stitched into the very structure of its walls. Inside that modest house, a nightmare had unfolded. Behind the lace curtains and under the warm glow of porch lights, a system of exploitation had thrived, hidden in plain sight. And when it was fully exposed, it sent a shockwave through the town of Mazan and far beyond. For Gisèle, survival meant more than healing from the trauma. It meant reclaiming her story and her life. She stood in court, not just as a victim, but as a woman demanding accountability. Her bravery led to a rare moment of national reflection on abuse, trust, and how well we really know the people closest to us. Today, the house may look the same from the outside, but it will never be just a house again. It's a symbol of betrayal, of survival, and a story the world won't soon forget. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.